Dems heard Terry McAuliffe. I mean, I'm going to be blunt. Democrats control both houses, and they have to act like they have to be disciplined, have to get results.
Well, the results yesterday in Virginia, maybe New Jersey as well, were disappointing but not surprising.
Failure to deliver. Congress has to deliver. Windows closing. We have no more time. We need to get it done. And as one who will be running for re-election in 2022, I need results that I can show the American people that Congress can deliver.
Democrats are pointing fingers at one another after a poor performance in state and local elections on Tuesday. There were real losses on progressive issues in Virginia and Minneapolis and Buffalo, as well as a shocking near miss in New Jersey. But while Democrats continue their post-election blame game, Republicans have launched the next stage of their voter suppression campaign. North Carolina's GOP-controlled legislature approved new congressional maps that will advantage Republicans for the next decade. The state gained a congressional seat after the 2020 census, but now 10 of the state's 14 districts will lean Republican. Republicans in the state had sworn to take a race-blind approach to drawing districts, but still produced maps that disadvantage people of color. And because North Carolina legislature is in charge of redistricting, the state's Democratic governor is unable to veto the maps. Joining me now to discuss is scholar and progressive activist, Dr. Cornel West. Cornel, we just wanted to have you on to get your take on what has happened this week and what the implications are for the future of our country, but also the future for Democrats.
Yeah, well, I just salute you, brother, for holding up the bloodstained banner, exposing the lies and telling the truth. And what we find ourselves is in a very, very dim moment. There's a systematic breakdown, not just in Congress, but politicians in the Democratic Party as it relates to big money. That the moderates themselves are not just moderates, they're tied to big money, so they won't move. And the progressives have not been courageous enough to make strong demands, thinking that somehow Biden was going to intervene and come in, and he just hasn't. And what Sister Harris is doing, I don't know. Somebody's got to explain to me. If you would think that her voice is as eloquent as she is, her voice would be heard in a major way, and it seems as if she's gone mute. So you got a systemic breakdown, though, brother. What that means is that the right wing of the Republican Party getting stronger on the state level as well as the national level, and that slow movement toward neo-fascism, because the Trumpism as well as Trump is still very, very strong.
You know, what's happening on the state level is really fascinating and really problematic. It doesn't get the same headlines as a bill that denies people a right to pass out water to people in a line. That is easy to access. People say, oh, that's outrageous. You can't pass out people when they're waiting to vote. That is a form of voter suppression. Yes, it is. However, this redistricting thing is even worse in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Because what is happening is they are taking the gains that are made by black and brown people by the expansion in population, which is largely black and brown people in these states, taking that power that would otherwise redound to them and using it for white voters. So it has happened now in Texas, where 95% of the increase in population in that state was from black and brown people. They got 2 congressional seats out of that deal, and they actually reduced the number of Hispanic seats, and there's not a single black majority district in the state of Texas. And now we turn to North Carolina, as I just mentioned before. That increase also produced them 1 new seat, and now they are basically going to have the vast majority of the districts are going to be Republican controlled, which means white controlled. How dangerous is this, and why do you not have as many people outraged by this racial gerrymandering, which is basically giving white voters far more power than their numbers would justify?
Right. I mean, one of the reasons why we don't have the outcry is we don't have enough high quality journalists who are willing to tell the truth the way you do. People don't realize what's really at stake. And keep in mind that there is bipartisan agreement and consensus when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to increase in military budget, when it comes to substantive support for corporate elites in Wall Street. The Democrats and the Republicans all come together. They don't come together when it comes to these fundamental issues of infrastructure as it relates to working class and poor people's plight and predicament. That's where you get the internal conflict. So Sister Melanie is right, Sister Juliana is right, who were on your show earlier, that this breakdown is one in which the Democratic Party can't get its act together precisely because when it comes to the most fundamental issues, they have progressives who haven't put forward a strong enough effort to make their demands felt. And then you got Republicans who are in the back pockets of the rich, the back pockets of big money, big pharmaceutical companies, big coal, and so on. And so you got a whole system now that is just dysfunctional. And the danger is that the whole system has lost its legitimacy, which means that people don't want to participate at all. And if people feel they don't want to participate at all, then that leaves the possibilities up to the gangsters who will just do what they want to do with no accountability at all. That's what fascism is. Gangsters who take over with no accountability whatsoever.
Let's turn to the House right now. The House is still in session. The Speaker says she's going to keep them in session all night if she has to until she gets a vote. But there are machinations. People are not wanting to take that vote right now. Moderates want to make sure that the Build Back Better plan gets scored by the CBC, which could take weeks to do. What do you think of what is happening right now as we are sitting here in Washington, D.C.?
Isn't it something that the moderates are so concerned about making sure every penny is paid for when it comes to the needs of the people, but when it comes to military budget, when it comes to issues that have to do with the well-to-do, they don't raise those kind of questions at all. And so it's what Martin Luther King Jr. meant when he said, we got warped priorities. And when you have warped priorities, then working and poor people, disproportionately black people, are afterthoughts. We own the caboose, as it were. And they think we ought to be lucky to be on the train. And we say, no. We laid the foundations of the train. We laid the rails. And yet you still got us in the caboose. But when it comes to Pentagon, when it comes to corporate elites, they still in the driver's seat. That's what the Democratic Party has to come to terms with. And that's, what Brother Bernie and others have been saying for a while. It gets worse and worse, my brother. It's very sad. Very sad.
When did the Democrats become the deficit hawks?
Isn't that the truth? They became deficit hawks when in 2008 you had Robin Rubin and Larry Summers and others imposing their neoliberal policies that said that we're fearful of inflation, but if we have high unemployment, let the people suffer. That's the same group that when you had Wall Street gangsters engaged in insider trading and market manipulation and fraudulent activities and predatory lending, not one Wall Street executive went to jail. That is the austerity policy of that particular economic team going back to 2008, and they became the deficit hawks in the Democratic Party. We saw it through Brother Barack Obama's team, and now they're spilling over into Biden. I was hoping that Biden would shift, but you've now got these moderate Democratic senators who are still tied to that austerity program when it relates to war, the poor and working people. But it's not austerity when it comes to the military budget. Keep in mind now. When it comes to fighting wars, trillions of dollars are spent. How much money did we spend in Afghanistan? Trillions of dollars. Right. And what's the result? More chaos, more barbaric treatment of precious folk there as the gangsters, as the Taliban take over. Sad, man. It's very sad, but we got to tell the truth.
Dr. Cornel West, always a pleasure, sir, to get your perspective and insights on things. Thank you so much, and have a great Friday night.